Part 40. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 391. If you insist on asking, I will tell you the answer. Qin Mu smiled faintly, his eyes were gentle, and he said softly, each has its merits. Xuanhuan was obviously not very satisfied with this answer, but it was also a reasonable explanation. This tyrant still left some face for himself, and did not devalue himself to be worthless. She hummed and said, "Forget it, I'll forgive you for now." But at this moment, Qin Mu suddenly shook his head, "But in terms of charm, you are still far behind. Do you look down on me?" Hearing this, Xuanhuan blinked, and stared at Qin Mu with a pair of autumn water-like eyes. "I'm just telling the truth." Qin Mu shrugged his shoulders. "You," Xuanhuan's pretty face flushed, but she had no way to deal with Qin Mu. But thinking of the purpose of her coming here, she sorted out her thoughts again, thought about it, and suddenly leaned close to Qin Mu's ear and whispered quietly, "Tyrant, do you like me too?" Qin Mu stared at Xuanhuan in front of him carefully. The girl in front of him blushed with shame, but her eyes were burning, full of strong expectations and hopes, and she looked like she was eagerly waiting for his confession. "I like so many people." Qin Mu curled his lips. What's the point of asking this question? The people he likes can't be described as many, and there are so many that he doesn't even know how many there are. However, his words fell into Xuanhuan's ears with a different meaning. She bit her red lips, and a trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. "Am I among these people?" Xuanhuan asked unwillingly, biting her lips and looking at Qin Mu with burning eyes. "What do you think?" Qin Mu asked back, and also quietly leaned close to Xuanhuan's ear. The tips of their noses were almost touching, and the hot breath sprayed on Xuanhuan's ears, itching and numb. Feeling the heat from her ears, Xuanhuan's delicate body suddenly tensed for a moment, and her pretty face instantly turned liver-colored. It seems that Sister Mayer is right. This tyrant likes charming and proactive women. Nonsense, are you a homosexual and like men? Xuanhuan mustered up the courage to stare at Qin Mu. This guy's breath hit her neck, making her feel inexplicably flustered. "It has nothing to do with you that I like men," Qin Mu said lightly. Hearing this, Xuanhuan choked immediately. This tyrant is really stubborn. "No, I must not give up." Xuanhuan took a deep breath and tried to adjust her disordered breath. Suddenly, she came forward again, stretched out her slender jade fingers, gently poked Qin Mu's chest, and said delicately, "My tyrant, is my body beautiful?" After saying that, she deliberately leaned forward. Qin Mu's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect that this little white tiger was so bold and dared to seduce him in person. And most importantly, the girl's behavior made him feel moved. "It's just average, upper middle level." However, Qin Mu still gave an objective evaluation despite his excitement. You are so annoying." Xuanhuan couldn't help but punch Qin Mu's chest with her pink fist, but unfortunately, the force was just like tickling, and it couldn't move at all. The little white tiger in front of him was like a shy kitten. Qin Mu laughed dumbly and said, "Tell me, what do you want to see me for? Are you just here to ask these boring questions?" Hearing this, Xuanhuan pouted and said angrily, "You are boring. I came here specially to see you, okay?" "Oh, you came here specially to see me? Is there something serious?" Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, and a hint of teasing appeared in his eyes. Xuanhuan's pretty face flushed, and she hesitated for a long time, but couldn't hold back a word. "The reason is very simple. This tyrant emperor is busy practicing with others every day. He hasn't practiced with her for a long time." Xuanhuan pouted slightly when she thought of this, and a trace of grievance flashed across her face. This tyrant emperor clearly promised to practice with her, why didn't he come to see her for so long? Xuanhuan became more and more angry as she thought about it. Suddenly, she stood on tiptoe and kissed Qin Mu fiercely. "Are you satisfied now?" Xuanhuan panted heavily, looking directly at Qin Mu with a pair of smart big eyes, and said threateningly, "Hurry up and practice with me, otherwise I will, then." She said for a long time, but she couldn't hold back a harsh word. Xuanhuan was very annoyed. This bastard emperor didn't know what others were thinking at all. "So what?" Qin Mu asked curiously. "I'm just going to ignore you." Xuanhuan turned her head to one side in a huff. Qin Mu was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Are you willing to give it up?" Xuanhuan blushed and hummed, "No, so hurry up and practice with me." So eager, Qin Mu looked at Xuanhuan with a half smile. "You said you would never give in, and you said you would just treat it as a dog bite. How come you are like this now?" Xuanhuan blushed when she heard this, puffed her cheeks, and said angrily, "If you don't practice with me again, don't blame me for running to your bedroom every day and annoying you." Looking at the little white tiger's frustrated look, Qin Mu's mood suddenly improved. "Okay, since you want to practice with me so much, I will reluctantly agree." Qin Mu smacked his lips, looking very reluctant. "Really? Great. Let's go." Xuanhuan was immediately happy, holding Qin Mu and leaving. Just then, a tender cry came from behind them. "You little white tiger, you actually want to eat alone, right?" As the voice came, a crisp bell sounded from behind. Then, a young girl in her 20s slowly walked into the room. She was wearing an emerald green dress, her waist was slender, her black hair was scattered like clouds, her peach blossom eyes were charming and blurred, and her gaze was full of charm. Her skin was whiter than snow, her facial features were delicate and soft, and the whole person seemed like spring flowers and autumn moons, which was amazing. Xuanhuan looked up at the girl in front of her, her pupils suddenly contracted, and her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. So beautiful. The girl's appearance was perfect, as if it was the most elegant work of God, impeccable. Xuanhuan was startled and quickly let go of Qin Mu's arm, smiling and greeting him. "Sister Mayor." Xuanhuan lowered her head guiltily. Although she was not afraid of this vixen's sister, she came here before her and taught her many things. It was not good to be too disrespectful. Sumair showed a playful look on her face. She walked straight to Xuanhuan and looked her over carefully. "Tisk tisk, you are indeed a good disciple I taught. You are useful so soon." The girl's voice was soft and gentle, as beautiful as the singing of an oriole. Xuanhuan's cheeks were immediately stained with a layer of blush. She lowered her head and said a little awkwardly, "Sister Mayor." The eyes of this vixen were really too vicious. Just being stared at by her, Xuanhuan actually felt that she had nowhere to hide. She wanted to hide in the soil. Warm Ti. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 392. Haha, don't call me sister, I can't bear it. Sumair looked at Xuanhuan with a smile. This little girl usually looks cold and noble, but I didn't expect that she is actually a sultry character. "Sister Mayor." Xuanhuan called out timidly again. "You came to see the master this time, don't you want to practice with the master?" Sumair smiled lightly. Xuanhuan's pretty face became even redder, and even her neck turned red with embarrassment. She lowered her head and didn't know what to say. She did come with this idea, otherwise she wouldn't have kissed him as soon as they met. However, being exposed like this made Xuanhuan very embarrassed, and she didn't know what to say for a while. Seeing that Xuanhuan didn't speak, Sumair sighed lightly and shook her head and said, You, I knew that when you asked me how to be more charming, I guessed that you must have other little thoughts." Sumair poked Xuanhuan's forehead with her finger while speaking. Xuanhuan's pretty face turned even redder. She didn't want to do that. Who made this tyrant always come to see her? Okay, okay, you are so embarrassed. It's nothing. You don't know that little spirit turtle. She is more powerful than you. I even suspect that she is from the nine-tailed Sky Fox clan. Sumeir teased Xuanhuan, shook her head, and secretly clenched her fists. When she thought of Xuanhuan, she felt a little itchy. Compared with her, Sumeir felt that she had become purer. There is no need to mention Xuanhuan, who looked even more immature. When Xuanhuan heard this, she couldn't help but recall a figure in a black dress in her mind. It was a beautiful woman with a pair of deep black eyes, as bright as stars, but with coldness and indifference. She was slender and graceful, and her body seemed to be surrounded by cold mist. The whole person gave people a sense of distance that was thousands of miles away. But every time she practices, she is the most active, just like a different person. No one can compete with her. With so much essence power, she absorbed most of it by herself. In this way, I can't get much essence power at all. Otherwise, I wouldn't take the initiative to find this tyrant. Xuanhuan curled her lips, full of resentment. Sumeir looked at Xuanhuan's depressed look, and couldn't help laughing and said, "Okay, okay, you continue to practice, sister won't disturb you." After that, Sumeir turned around and walked out of the door with lotus feet. Her slender and exquisite figure was swaying and full of temptation. She walked very casually, as if she didn't have any nostalgia. Looking at Sumeir going away, Xuanhuan quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this vixen left, otherwise she would have to give her half. However, at this moment, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in her ears. "Now that we're here, why are you leaving? Let's stay together." Xuanhuan froze in place and turned to look. Qin Mu was leaning lazily against a pillar, his dark eyes were slightly raised, and his thin lips were smiling. As soon as the words fell, Sumeir's figure flashed in an instant, and she returned, standing beside the two of them with a smile on her face. "Okay, master," the girl called out delicately, then stretched out her white jade hand to hold Qin Mu's arm, and looked at Xuanhuan with a smile. Sumeir's speed and quick reaction caught people off guard, as if she was waiting for Qin Mu to say this. Xuanhuan. As expected. This vixen must have predicted what the tyrant was going to say, so she deliberately left so seductively. "Since you're here, you have to accompany the master to practice before leaving." Sumeir acted coquettishly while secretly glancing at Xuanhuan's reaction. Looking at her dazed look, Sumeir couldn't help but pursed her lips and smiled secretly. This little girl is really innocent and cute. Based on her understanding of Qin Mu, she naturally knew that he would not let her go like this. So she was just pretending just now. Xuanhuan was stunned for several seconds, and finally gave up struggling. "Forget it. One more is one more." Xuanhuan sighed as if she had accepted her fate, and silently comforted herself in her heart. She did this for practice. For practice. She had no choice. Well, that's it. Seeing Xuanhuan's obedient appearance, Sumeir couldn't help but smile and said, "Master, look, Sister Xuanhuan is so well behaved and sensible, shouldn't you reward her something?" Hearing this, Xuanhuan's eyes widened immediately, and she almost subconsciously covered her buttocks, looking at Sumeir vigilantly. The word reward is not a good word here. Qin Mu smiled slightly. "Of course, I have always been clear about rewards and punishments." Xuanhuan's eyes widened slightly, and she looked at Qin Mu with some fear, and her steps unconsciously retreated. You ganged up to bully me." After saying that, she turned around and ran away, even forgetting about cultivation. Looking at Xuanhuan's running back, Sumeir burst out laughing. "Silly sister, do you think you can still run today?" Sumeir chased after her with a smile. Qin Mu slightly curled the corners of his lips, and then stepped forward. A melee slowly began. Although Qin Mu did not attend court or show up in the past few days, the national teacher Du Yulin has arranged everything tirelessly. The first is to stabilize the situation within the Great Qin dynasty, recover the lost territory, and restore the territory swallowed by the Apocalypse Alliance to its original state. This is very important and must be done as soon as possible. Then all the remnants of the rebels hiding in the dark in the Tianlan domain and the monks of the Apocalypse Alliance were cleared out, and their will to resist was completely disintegrated. The second is to send troops to the Apocalypse domain, take over the entire Apocalypse domain, and turn it into the territory of the Great Qin. Both of these things require a large number of troops. Especially the second thing, which is a very difficult thing. After all, the Apocalypse domain is too vast. Even with the elite troops of the Great Qin, it is impossible to completely control it in a short period of time, let alone turn it into the territory of the Great Qin. Moreover, there are many small sects and small families in the Tiankai domain, among which there are many powerful people. It will be an extremely difficult task to conquer the Tiankai domain. However, Du Yulin did not hesitate at all, and directly issued an order to let the army set off quickly. Now that the Great Qin has a great victory, morale is high. If the army is dispatched, the efficiency will be far better than before, and it will definitely achieve a satisfactory result. And there are dozens of saints sitting in the hall to cheer for it. Even if there are fish that slip through the net, with the deterrence of those saints, it should not cause any trouble. Finally, Du Yulin began to reorganize the source of troops, recruit elites, accumulate strength, and prepare to deal with the dangers that may come at any time. All this went smoothly. In a flash, 7 days passed. During these 7 days, the situation in the entire Great Qin became more and more stable, and more monks and people in the Tiankai domain became the people of the Great Qin. The entire Chang'an city also became more and more glorious under the shroud of this prosperous atmosphere. However, at this time, a group of powerful and gorgeously dressed monks came from other domains and entered the scope of the Apocalypse domain. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 393. Master Yan's, in half a day's journey, we will arrive at the Holy Land of Light. In an extremely luxurious flying boat, an old man pushed in the door and reported to the middle-aged man who was sitting in the flying boat with his eyes closed and concentrating. Hearing this, the man opened his eyes, his deep and dark eyes filled with a bit of indifference, and his sharp eyes like an eagle scanned the surrounding scene. Outside the boat, the sun was shining, the blue sky was cloudless, and it was extremely beautiful. But the coldness in the man's eyes did not diminish at all. The man was wearing a crescent-colored brocade robe. He was tall and straight, with sharp features and an air of handsomeness. The flying boat he was riding in at the moment was even more luxurious. The entire body was made of fine spar carvings, and a dazzling luminous pearl hung every 3 meters. Against this luxurious attire, he looked even more noble and extraordinary. There is a space formation inside the flying boat. The area is astonishingly large, covering thousands of square meters, like a giant palace. Its flying speed is far beyond the comparison of ordinary flying spiritual weapons. The high grade of this flying boat is obviously extraordinary. At this time, the man stood up and walked in front of the window, looking at the mountains and rivers in the distance. His eyes were deep, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Behind the man, there were dozens of young men and women, each of them exuding powerful fluctuations. In addition, there are 4 old men, all with white beards and drooping chests. They have serious expressions on their faces and exude a strong sense of coercion. They are obviously 4 strong men at the saint level. Seeing that Master Yan's had not spoken for a long time, the old man coughed lightly, lowered his head and said respectfully, "Master, this apocalypse territory is a barren land with few resources and thin spiritual energy. It is really not worth your coming in person." "Yes, Master, this apocalypse territory has only gradually developed in recent years. Tens of thousands of years ago, this place was still a barren land," another saint also agreed. "Master, you are really condescending to come here in person this time. In my opinion, why don't you go back and wait for news from me?" another saint suggested. Hearing this, Master Yanzi frowned and said in a cold voice, "You think I want to come here because it's not an order given by the Holy Sun?" Listening to Master Yanzi mentioning the so-called Holy Sun, everyone's hearts trembled and they immediately fell silent. The Holy Sun has said that this grand competition is very important. You must take it to heart and do not take it lightly. Master Yan's continued to give instructions. "Yes. Don't worry, real person." After listening to the man's words, everyone nodded in agreement, except for the last 2 who did not respond. "Master Yanzi, I think this is too slow. Why don't we notify you separately?" one of the men said hesitantly. However, as soon as the man finished speaking, another person grabbed him and winked at him. Immediately, the man hurriedly changed the subject. "Master Yans, we are very close to the holy land of shaking light. If we speed up a little more, we will arrive soon." Master Yans nodded, said nothing more, went back to the room, sat down cross-legged, and continued to practice. After Master Yans left, another man whispered, "Mr. Chen, why are you holding me? I didn't say anything wrong. Do you think you have lived too long? Are you willing to die if you dare to contradict Master Yanzi like this?" Mr. Chen glared at the man and scolded him in a low voice. After a long time, the man finally came to his senses and quickly said with a smile, "Hey, I really want to show off. Master Yanzi is a big shot in our Qingyun temple. Who dares to disobey him? Now you know you are afraid? You dared to contradict Master Feng's just now. Didn't you seek your own death?" Mr. Chen sighed. The man quickly apologized and said with a smile, "How could that be possible? Didn't I not understand the rules and offend the real person?" Immediately, the man paused for a moment and continued, "But I heard that the younger generation in the apocalypse territory are not very good. Even if we win against them at the grand event, it doesn't mean anything. Why do we invite them?" "Haha," Mr. Chen snorted coldly, "what do you know? How can flowers look more noble without green leaves? Besides, they are all elites selected from various sects in various domains. If they can all be conquered, they will also be in the future. It is an extremely terrifying force, which is called long-term development." The man suddenly understood and nodded, "So that's it? No wonder the Holy Sun asked Master Yanzi to come here in person." Mr. Chen glanced at the man and said calmly, "Now that you know, you should be smarter in your actions in the future. Don't be so reckless like today. If you anger Master Yanzi, you are not the one who will suffer. That's what Mr. Chen taught you." The man scratched his head and said awkwardly. Then, the man seemed to remember something, and suddenly approached Mr. Chen and asked in a low voice, "Mr. Chen, it is said that the Holy Lord of the Shaking Light Holy Land is a peerless fairy who is rare to see in 1,000 years. Have you ever seen it?" "Huh?" Hearing this, Mr. Chen frowned slightly and looked at the man in surprise. "Why are you asking about her? You must have fallen in love with her holy master, right?" I'm just curious." The man smiled awkwardly. "You kid, stop having such wishful thinking. How could a peerless beauty like the holy master fall in love with you?" Mr. Chen gave the man a white look and sneered. The man smiled mysteriously and said, "Mr. Chen, you can't be so sure about everything. Although I am indeed not worthy of her, what do you think would happen if the Holy Lord fell in love with me?" "Haha, you kid, Don't be a toad wanting to eat swan meat. You don't have to think about the Holy Lord Yaoguang, but you can think about the Holy Lady Yaoguang. Old Chen laughed loudly and patted the man's shoulder. The man's eyes lit up and he asked quickly, "Really? What does the Holy Lady Yaoguang look like? Is she pretty?" Old Chen shook his head and said, "I have never seen the Holy Lady Yaoguang, but it is said that she is beautiful and beautiful like a fairy. As for whether it is true, you will know when you arrive at the Holy Land of Yaoguang later." The man nodded and said with a look of longing, "Well, if that is the case, maybe I really have a chance to pursue her. After all, I am also a true disciple of the Qingyun Temple in Daoxuan Domain, and she is just a holy lady in this remote place. It should be more than enough for her." Hearing this, old Chen curled his lips calmly, and a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes, but he didn't say anything else, but turned around and left. The man paced back and forth constantly, obviously already in a fantasy. At the same time, Tianya City. This is the northernmost city in the Tiankai domain, adjacent to the Qingyun domain. Tianya City is the largest city nearby and the most prosperous and rich place. All the immortal sects or families coming from other continents will choose to rest here. Therefore, due to its special geographical location and unique commercial value, Tianya City attracts merchants and cultivators from all over the world every year, bringing many precious and rare treasures. Therefore, the prosperity of Tianya City even exceeds that of the city in the center of the Tiankai domain. But at the same time, the complexity of the personnel here is also more chaotic than other places. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 394. Now, in the spacious and luxurious inn, a young man wearing brocade clothes and exuding nobility sat on it with handsome features. The man looked to be about 30 years old, with handsome appearance, skin as clear as a baby, and nobility and elegance between his brows. At this moment, he picked up the tea on the table and tasted it casually. At this time, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," the man said calmly. The door opened, and a slender woman wearing a purple skirt walked in. The woman's figure is delicate and charming, her facial features are stunning, her red and plump lips are curled up in a slight smile, her eyes are flowing, with an indescribable charm and temptation. "Young master," the woman called softly. The man raised his eyebrows upon hearing this. "Oh? What? Is the matter settled?" Of course, the woman nodded lightly. After saying that, the woman took out a letter and handed it to the man. This is the information about Daqin that my subordinates have investigated during this period," the woman replied respectfully. "Yeah," the man nodded casually. He opened the letter and looked at it for a few times, and his expression gradually became serious. After a moment, he raised his head, his dark and deep phoenix eyes fell on the woman, and asked, "Are you sure what is written on it is true?" The woman lowered her eyes gently and said respectfully, "I can guarantee that my information will definitely be correct." Hearing this, the man pondered for a moment, then waved his hand, "You go down first." "Yes." After the woman left, the man lowered his head again and read the letter in his hand carefully. After reading it, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but raise a little. "Daqin? Ha, that's interesting," the man murmured to himself, then put the letter into his arms. He glanced around the room and suddenly said, "Come out." After the words fell, an extremely strange sound suddenly sounded in the empty room. Squeak. The next moment, two figures appeared out of thin air in the empty room. Both of them exuded a powerful aura, and they were clearly two strong monks in the Holy Realm. "Young master," the two Holy Realm monks called out. Although their attitudes were respectful, they did not act too humble. After all, with their strength reaching their level, they no longer have to follow many rules. The man stood up and then asked, "Has there been any new news in the Apocalypse territory during this time?" Upon hearing this, The two saints looked at each other and reported, an alien flying boat appeared in the Apocalypse territory. According to our inference, it should come from the Deoxuan territory. Deoxuan realm, the man narrowed his eyes, and a ray of light flashed in his eyes. Fias who, is it someone from the Wangxiang palace who is here? Probably not. The two saints shook their heads, and one of the holy monks explained, the flying boat of the Wangxiang shrine is very famous, and it basically does not hide its whereabouts. In addition, according to the information we have, I think it should be the flying boat of Qingyun Temple. Qingyun Temple. The man frowned slightly, and after saying something, he seemed to suddenly remember something, and quickly pinched his fingers. Oh, yes, counting the time, it's time for the grand competition that takes place once in a century. They should go and notify. Immediately, he ordered, continue to keep an eye on this spaceship. If you have any news, report it to me in time, but don't get too close to avoid being discovered. Yes. Remember, no matter what happens, your first task is to protect yourself, the man warned. Clear. The two saints nodded, then retreated, and soon turned into a stream of light and disappeared through the air. The man stood quietly, watching the two people go away. Only when their backs completely disappeared did he look back and murmured to himself. The people from Qingyun Temple came out again, which means that the centenary ceremony is about to begin. It seems that we need to prepare in advance. Then he suddenly smiled and looked in the direction of the great Qin dynasty. The people in Qingyun Temple must not know that the entire Apocalypse domain now belongs to the great Qin dynasty. There must be a lot of excitement now. Time passed quickly, and half a day passed in a flash. A huge spaceship came from the distant sky and docked steadily outside the holy land of shaking light. Master Yan's, our flying boat has arrived. An old man with white beard walked up to Master Yan Zi and said respectfully. Hearing this, Master Yan Zi stood up slowly and glanced in the direction of the light-shaking holy land, with a glimmer of light flashing in his eyes. Everyone, let's go down, immediately, Master Yan said. As soon as he finished speaking, he jumped out of the flying boat, and the rest of the people followed him. The holy land of shaking light is located on a mountain, surrounded by spiritual energy, shaded by green trees, and filled with the chirping of birds and the fragrance of flowers. The majestic main peak stands in the clouds, surrounded by fairy mist, as if you are in a fairyland, ethereal, dreamy, and beautiful. In the center of the main peak stands a collection of exquisite buildings, pavilions, bridges, and flowing water. Its all appearance, flashy and unreal. Master Yan Zi looked up at the buildings in the distance and said expressionlessly. Yes, the spiritual energy here is indeed incomparable to our Deoxuan domain. It's no wonder that there can't be any powerful existence here. The Apocalypse domain is already like this. I can't even imagine what the Tianlan domain further south will be like. Baron. An old man nodded and agreed. I have been to Tianlan territory once. It is like a wasteland, and it borders the barbarians, just like a group of uncivilized barbarians. Yes, I have been to Tianlan territory, and it is completely different from here, alas. Okay, our task is only to notify the sects in Tiankai territory. As for Tianlan territory, we don't need to worry about it. Master Yan Zi waved his hand and said indifferently. Let's go, hurry up and pass the message. We have to go to other sects later, don't waste time. After speaking, he took the lead and rushed into the Yaoguang Holy Land. Seeing this, everyone followed. They did not hide their whereabouts, nor did they deliberately lower their breath, and soon attracted the attention of the nearby mountain guarding disciples. Who dares to trespass into our sect? The mountain guarding disciples shouted, holding a long sword to block Master Yan Zi and others. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mi and Buletin Leng. Chapter 395. Looking at the stranger who suddenly appeared, the Xuanhuan disciples were full of doubts, and there was a trace of fear in their eyes, as if they remembered some terrible memories. For their questioning, Master Yanzi did not pay any attention, his eyes were indifferent, as if he did not take them seriously at all. At the same time, the Xuanhuan disciples felt a great pressure, and their legs could not help but tremble slightly, looking at Master Yanzi in fear. Although the man in front of them looked ordinary, the Xuanhuan disciples could vaguely sense that he contained a violent and unparalleled power in his body, like an abyss or a prison, which was shocking. Shua shua shua. The Xuanhuan disciples did not dare to hesitate, and all urged the spiritual power in their bodies to prepare to resist the enemy. But the next moment, Master Yanzi and others turned into a wisp of breeze and swept into the Yaoguang Holy Land, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. These people were too weak to let them stay for a moment and waste any words. Who is this? Such a terrible aura. Looking at Master Yanzi and his companions who were leaving, the disciples guarding the mountain were still in shock, and their foreheads were already covered with beads of sweat. They felt a hint of danger from Master Yanzi, and even had the urge to kneel on the ground. Who cares? Anyway, our Yaoguang Holy Land is no longer the Yaoguang Holy Land of the past. We are now a force under the command of the great Qin dynasty. They will definitely not dare to mess around after a while, someone spoke up. That's right. Hearing this, the others echoed. Okay, no more nonsense, report this to the elders quickly. An older disciple waved his hand to stop everyone's conversation, and then took out the communication jade slip to contact the elders. And when Master Yanzi and his companions really stepped into the Yaoguang Holy Land, bursts of thunder suddenly sounded in the void. Who is trespassing into my Yaoguang Holy Land? Tell me your name immediately. Upon hearing this, Master Yanzi raised his hands and signaled everyone to stop. At the same time, he released his spiritual sense to explore the surroundings. Buzz. Suddenly, a golden barrier suddenly appeared, blocking Master Yanzi's spiritual sense and blocking his exploration of the Yaoguang Holy Land. Sensing the powerful confinement force coming from the barrier, Master Yanzi was slightly stunned, then frowned, and thought to himself. When did the Yaoguang Holy Land have such a powerful defensive formation that can block my spiritual sense? Boom! Just as Master Yanzi was puzzled, a brilliant light suddenly burst out in the distant sky, as gorgeous as fireworks. Accompanied by a deafening roar that resounded through the sky, a huge gap suddenly appeared above the Yaoguang Holy Land. Swish! The next moment, a dazzling white light tore through the sky. Who are you? Why did you trespass into my Yaoguang Holy Land? The majestic voice suddenly sounded again between heaven and earth, as deafening as thunder. Hearing this, Master Yanzi narrowed his eyes and said loudly, "We are from Xuanhuan Temple, and this time we come to visit the Holy Lord Yaoguang." Hearing the other party's identity, the strange vision in the void suddenly disappeared. Then, several young women wearing purple crane robes, jade belts on their waists, and elegant looks flew from the sky. Xuanhuan Temple. Hearing Master Yanzi's introduction, a female elder frowned slightly and said in surprise. As disciples of the Yaoguang Holy Land, they naturally heard of Xuanhuan Temple. The human race has a total of 9 domains, namely Daoxuan Domain, Xuanhuan Domain, Luo Domain, Jile Domain, Origin Domain, Piamiao Domain, Fengling Domain, Tiankai Domain, and Tianlan Domain. Simplified version of the map. Xuanhuan Temple is one of the 4 holy places in Daoxuan Domain. Daoxuan Domain is the largest in territory, with the most abundant cultivation resources, the most sects, and the strongest among the 9 human domains. Therefore, Xuanhuan Temple can be ranked among the 4 holy places in Daoxuan Domain. It can be said that it has a profound foundation and is powerful. It is one of the top holy places of the human race, several times stronger than Yaoguang Holy Land. In the 4 holy places in Daoxuan Domain, Each of them has produced more than one emperor, and the foundation is extremely terrifying. There are even rumors that there are some old emperors in the ancestral land of the four holy places, but they are sealed in the source of God to delay the passing of life and strive to live a second life. And such rumors are not groundless. It is said that there was a precedent. A great emperor was sealed in the source of God, and with the help of the power of the source of God, he was forced to live for 10,000 years. His strength broke through the shackles and reached an incredible state. In addition, the relationship between the four holy places is also quite close. The comprehensive strength ranking of the sects in the other 8 regions is basically determined by the four holy places. Important matters such as resisting foreign invasions, slaying demons, and supporting the righteous path are basically decided by the four holy places after discussion. Therefore, in the entire human race, the four holy places have extraordinary prestige. Of course, the four holy places are too lazy to care about some remote large regions, such as their Tiankai region and Tianlan region. Even Fengling region is rarely taken care of. After all, the distance between each territory is too far. Even if there is a teleportation formation, a round trip is a very consuming thing. And today, Xuanhuan Temple actually sent someone to visit. How could the disciples of Yaoguang Holy Land not be shocked? More importantly, it was chosen at this critical node. You know, their Yaoguang Holy Land has just surrendered to the Great Qin dynasty, and even their Holy Lord is still in the harem of the Great Qin dynasty and has not returned yet. Xuanhuan Temple is visiting at this time. Is it for this matter? The women of Yaoguang Holy Land looked at each other and exchanged glances. Then an elder asked cautiously, "Are you sure you are here to visit our Holy Lord?" "Of course, otherwise why would we come all the way to Yaoguang Holy Land?" "Are we free?" Hearing this, Master Yanzi said lightly. This. Hearing Master Yanzi's words, the elders were silent. Although Master Yanzi's tone was calm, there was a hint of arrogance. It seemed that they looked down on their holy land, but when they thought that they came from Xuanhuan Temple, the elders suddenly felt a little palpitated and did not dare to neglect them. "May I ask the master's name?" After a moment of silence, the purple-clothed woman in the lead asked. "She is Luziner, the 7th elder of Yaoguang Holy Land. She has reached the semi-saint realm and can be regarded as a core member of Yaoguang Holy Land." Yanzi Master Yanzi said calmly. Luziner took a look and said in a deep voice, "Master Yan, my saint master has been in seclusion for cultivation. Please come back another day." In seclusion for cultivation, hearing the woman's words, Master Yanzi raised his eyebrows and pondered. Luziner nodded and said, "Yes, my saint master has not been able to come out of seclusion because of seclusion for cultivation. I really have no time to entertain guests. I'm sorry. Being bullied by that tyrant should also be considered a kind of cultivation, right?" Master Yanzi said indifferently, "In that case, then call out the person who can take charge in your sect, and I can talk to her. He just came here to inform, as long as there is someone who can take charge. Others are not important." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 396. Hearing this, Luziner frowned and said, "Then Master Yan, please wait a moment. Please follow us to the main hall and wait." After saying this, Luziner turned around and winked at the other 6 elders, then flew away into the distance. Seeing this, Master Yanzi led everyone to follow. A series of brilliant rays of light streaked through the void, as fast as the limit, like comets streaking through the sky. In just a moment, the group of people came to a magnificent and huge hall deep in the Yaoguang Holy Land. The next moment, Luziner led several elders in from outside, Master Yan, everyone, please sit down. Hearing this, Master Yan Zi led everyone to sit down on the right. Master Yan, please wait here for a moment. I will notify our third elder and ask her to come and discuss with you. Lu Xiner bowed slightly and then left the main hall. Okay, Master Yan Zi nodded lightly. The disciples beside him also sat down one after another, and their words and actions were quite arrogant. Although they were not as arrogant as Master Yan Zi, they would not take the Yaoguang Holy Land seriously. Yaoguang Holy Land was just a small holy land, and they were the direct disciples of Qingyun Temple, one of the 4 holy lands in Daoxuan domain, and their status was completely different. If it were not for the order of the Saint Sun, they would not bother to run to such a small place. In a quiet and elegant palace in Yaoguang Holy Land, a woman in black stood by the window, looking at the mountains and rivers not far away. She had a beautiful face, bright eyes and white teeth, skin like cream, eyebrows like willows, waist like a bundle of white silk, and long black and beautiful hair draped over her shoulders, like a fairy walking out of a scroll, so beautiful that people were intoxicated and unable to extricate themselves. She stared out the window in a daze, her whole body shrouded in sadness, a tear slid down her pretty cheek, dripped onto the floor, and created a circle of ripples. Suddenly, her bright and deep eyes flickered, a bitter arc appeared at the corner of her mouth, and she murmured to herself, "Sister, if I had known it would turn out like this, I should have stopped you from going to Dakin. But, even if I stopped you, it seems useless. The apocalypse domain will still turn out like this, and the ending of the Yaoguang Holy Land is still doomed. Sister, you sacrificed yourself to keep the strength of the Yaoguang Holy Land the most intact in this catastrophe of the apocalypse domain, but, is this price worth it?" While murmuring, the peerless woman's cheeks slid down 2 lines of tears, and she was extremely sad. At this time, a soft and warm hand gently stroked her shoulder. "Sister, don't think about it, maybe this is the fate of our Yaoguang Holy Land." The person who spoke was also a beautiful woman, about 30 years old, with delicate features and skin whiter than snow, giving people a sense of coldness and nobility. But there was a trace of sadness and melancholy in her eyes. Maybe, the woman in black sighed, although she was unwilling, but she had to admit it. God's will is like a knife, no one can resist the arrangement of fate. Sister, you must cheer up, Yaoguang Holy Land still needs you to preside over the overall situation. The woman in white clenched her fists and said firmly. Alas! The woman in black sighed softly. What I am most worried about now is that with the character of the Qin Emperor, will he have other thoughts about our Yaoguang Holy Land? As soon as these words came out, the woman in white fell silent. The emperor was incompetent, cruel, and bloodthirsty, and regarded life as worthless. More importantly, he was also lustful and licentious. His character of collecting fairies and loving married women has long been deeply rooted in people's hearts. It can be said that it has reached the point where everyone in the Tiankai domain knows it. If nothing unexpected happens, he must have set his sights on the Yaoguang Holy Land a long time ago, and it is even very likely that he will come here in person. After all, the Yaoguang Holy Land has many fairies. This alone will definitely attract the attention and thoughts of the tyrant. Although the Yaoguang Holy Land has a profound foundation and strong strength, and is not much weaker than the major sects, it is extremely small in the face of the current strength of the Great Qin dynasty and is completely vulnerable. If he has evil thoughts about the Yaoguang Holy Land, the Yaoguang Holy Land will only have one result, which is the annihilation of the whole army. Once this happens, their Yaoguang Holy Land can be said to have completely cut off its inheritance and will never be the same again. Senior sister, don't worry. Although the tyrant is greedy and lustful, he is not a mediocre person. It is impossible for him to destroy his eternal foundation for women like us. After a brief moment of distraction, the woman in white slowly spoke. Although this is a bit self-deception, she can only comfort herself in this way for now. Ah, hearing this, The woman in black couldn't help but sigh, her heart full of helplessness and bitterness. I hope so. At this time, a burst of hurried footsteps came from far to near, and then, 7 or 8 graceful figures rushed quickly towards the location of the palace. Everyone was wearing a crescent-shaped white dress, with a graceful and slender figure, and a graceful demeanor, as if Chang'e from the Moon Palace had descended to the mortal world, dazzling. Seeing this, the woman in black gently wiped the corners of her eyes, and regained her indifferent look again, without showing any emotional fluctuations, as if the person who just cried was not her. Soon, those graceful figures stopped in the hall. Greetings to the third elder and the fourth elder. Several people saluted respectfully. What's wrong? Yu Linglong waved her hand and asked directly, did something happen? Upon hearing Yu Linglong's question, the girls looked at each other, biting their lips and thinking. Seeing this, Yu Linglong couldn't help frowning, and a vague feeling of uneasiness rose in her heart. Did something really happen? Back to third elder, someone from Qingyun Temple came and said he wanted to see our holy master. Lu Xiner replied. Meet our holy lord. Yu Linglong's pupils suddenly shrank. Are you sure they are people from Qingyun Temple? Yes, Lu Xiner nodded. The person who came is someone from Qingyun Temple. It is said that the leader is Master Yan's of Qingyun Temple. Oh, really? What are they doing here? Yu Linglong frowned, her eyes full of doubts. At this time, fourth elder Mu Xian's eyes suddenly flashed. Senior sister, could it be that the centenary celebration is coming? At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 397. Centennial Celebration. Yu Linglong was stunned for a moment, then her face changed slightly and she exclaimed, yes, the centenary celebration is coming. It has been more than 100 years since the last one. The centenary celebration is a grand festival jointly held by the 4 holy places in Daoxuan domain. It is held every 100 years, and each time it will gather the 4 forces of the human race, and the top heroes who are no more than 100 years old will participate here. Here, geniuses from all walks of life can display what they have learned throughout their lives, learn from the strengths of others, and seek the pinnacle of martial arts. And after getting ranked, you can also get generous rewards from the 4 holy places. This ranking is not just about getting rewards, it also represents the strength of the sect to a certain extent. Even if the final ranking is only at the bottom, it still stands out among countless sects. Once one enters the top 100, he will definitely be cultivated by his sect in the future, and his cultivation resources are enough to make any monk flock to him. There is even a chance to attack the core disciple seat of the sect and become a direct disciple of the sect. Don't look at it as just a direct disciple of the sect, but his authority is even more terrifying than that of ordinary outer sect elders. In addition to having all the privileges, you can also get a lot of cultivation resources, which are also the rarest treasures. Of course, in addition to these, there is a special reward, which is to participate in the centenary celebration and possibly be recruited by the 4 holy lands. The 4 holy lands are one of the top forces in the human race. There are many peerless evildoers lurking in each holy land. Ordinary geniuses are not even worthy of carrying their shoes. If you can enter it to practice, it is a great honor for a monk, and it can even change your life. Therefore, being able to participate in the centenary celebrations held in the 4 holy places is not only an honor, but also a great opportunity. In previous centenary celebrations, these 4 holy places will also select a group of the best disciples and send them to the ancient starry sky battlefield for trial. There are countless leftover things in this ancient battlefield, including all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, rare and exotic beasts, secret books of techniques, elixirs, spiritual weapons, etc. In addition to those opportunities, there are also many shocking opportunities buried within it, and there are even opportunities that reach the sky. It is said that in that ancient battlefield, there are inheritances left by the ancient dragon clan, and even inheritance items left by the immortals. If it is obtained by luck, it is enough to make a carp jump over the dragon gate and be reborn. However, although there are great opportunities there are also extreme dangers. Back then, a human race half-step emperor realm expert fell there. It can be said that it is a dangerous situation, but it is also full of unlimited opportunities and challenges. Therefore, even if they know that dangers are everywhere, they still cannot stop many people from fighting for it. Not only that, during the centenary celebrations, the 4 holy places will also hold lectures and teach cultivation methods, martial arts, etc. This is also a great opportunity for monks who have not received ranking rewards and are not qualified to enter the ancient battlefield. At the same time, some large chambers of commerce will open their auction venues and take out all the treasures that could not be bought or even seen in the past for bidding. In short, as long as you can participate in the centenary celebration, you will definitely gain a lot. Therefore, for the centenary celebration, all forces in the entire human race will send talented heroes to compete for the opportunity that belongs to them. This is not just a grand ceremony for Deoxuan domain, but a grand ceremony for the entire human race, which is of extraordinary significance. For the development of Yaoguang Holy Land, Yu Linglong naturally did not want to be absent. But Shen Yaoxi, the saint of their Yaoguang Holy Land, is still in the Qin dynasty. Without the permission of the Faint King, they would not be able to leave the Apocalypse realm, let alone go there. Thinking of this, a look of deep worry appeared between Yu Linglong's eyebrows. They can't afford to offend the Qin dynasty, and they can't afford to offend King Yun Temple either. What should they do? Senior sister, what should we do now? Should we tell King Yun Temple about the Tiankai domain and the great Qin dynasty? Maybe with their help, our Yaoguang Holy Land can get rid of the control of the great Qin dynasty. Yu Linglong was silent for a long time, and Mu Xian whispered. The news came too suddenly, and she was a little confused for a moment, but she thought this was an opportunity for Yaoguang Holy Land to get rid of the Qin dynasty. With the strength of King Yun Temple, it may be possible to do this. Even if King Yun Temple cannot do this, as long as the news is spread back to Deoxuan territory, the overall strength of Deoxuan territory will definitely be more than enough to fight against a great Qin. After all, it is the strongest domain of the human race. Its overall strength can defeat several apocalypse domains. The two are not at the same level. Not yet. Yu Linglong gently stroked her hair beside her ears, shook her head, pondered for a moment, and said in a concentrated voice. Senior sister and Yao 11 are still in the hands of the Hanjun. If we break up with De Qin, then senior sister and Yao 11 will be in danger. Moreover, the Hanjun is a complete madman, and the power in his hands is weird and unpredictable. If he, knowing that Yaoguang Holy Land has done something bad to him, I'm afraid he will take revenge at all costs. We are not sure whether the great Qin dynasty has any other preparations. After all, the Faint King is not a wise king. He will do any unscrupulous thing to achieve his goal. Yu Linglong's voice was solemn, and the more she thought about it, the more scared she became. If Qin Mu was really an incompetent emperor, she would definitely choose to backstab him without hesitation, but the incompetent emperor was obviously not as incompetent as he appeared on the surface. He looked incompetent and lustful, but in fact, he had a lot of hidden power in his hands, which was the most terrifying. Yu Linglong didn't know what cards the great Qin dynasty had, but she vaguely felt that the other party's strength was definitely far beyond their expectations. If there were no sufficient chips and guarantees, if they acted rashly, it would harm senior sister and Yao 11. If they really angered the other party, the first to bear the brunt would definitely be the Yaoguang Holy Land, and even the Apocalypse domain would definitely be in danger. Hearing Yu Linglong's words, Mu Xian's pretty face suddenly turned pale, and her eyes flashed with strong worry and panic. But what should we do? Mu Xian bit her lips tightly, looked at Yu Linglong anxiously, and said, "Is there really no other way? Are we going to watch our junior sister being abused by that tyrant?" After a pause, she closed her eyes slightly, and said in pain, "Until this disaster befalls you and me, and even all the disciples of the Yaoguang Holy Land." Ah! Hearing this, Yu Linglong sighed, slowly stood up, and looked into the distant void. It seemed that she had seen through the layers of space barriers and saw the man who was suppressing the Tiankai realm. She murmured, "Now we can only take it one step at a time. The situation of the Yaoguang Holy Land is difficult now. Everything is based on stability. It may not be a big deal to offend Qingyuan Temple, but if we offend that tyrant, it will be a real disaster." "Yes, senior sister." Mu Xian bit her cherry lips lightly and responded in a low voice, her expression slightly gloomy. She also knew that the Yaoguang Holy Land was already in a precarious situation and could not afford any more setbacks, otherwise it would be completely destroyed. "Xiner, quickly send someone to invite the other elders to the meeting hall," Yu Linglong said in a serious tone. "Also notify all the guardians to rush to the meeting hall immediately." "Okay, then I'll notify the elders." Lu Xiner nodded. "Let's go and meet them first." A moment later, Yu Linglong led a group of beautiful girls to the meeting hall. "At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 398. In the main hall, an old man looked around and said calmly to Master Yanzi, "Master, have you noticed that the atmosphere here is a bit strange?" After listening to the old man's message, Master Yanzi raised his eyebrows and asked in reply, "Why is it strange?" Hearing this, the old man lowered his voice and said, "Since I first entered the mountain gate, I felt that there was a little less excitement, and..." After a pause, the old man continued to say, "There is a little less vitality." Angry, Master Yanzi's expression moved slightly. "Yes, it's lifeless, and everyone is very nervous, as if something big is about to happen, and they seem to be on guard against something," the old man said solemnly, with a trace of doubt flashing in his eyes. In fact, he had noticed this doubt since he entered the apocalypse territory. It seemed as if something had happened in this vast territory, and there was a sense of depression that made him feel very uncomfortable. This was even more true after arriving at Yaoguang Holy Land. Everyone showed a hint of fear and nervousness. "Master, do you want to discuss this with the others?" the old man said hesitantly, with a hint of sadness on his face. Master Yanzi's eyes flashed and he fell into a brief silence. After a moment, he slowly said, "Don't make any noise." "Yes," the old man responded when he heard the words, and then shut up and said nothing. The conversation between the two did not attract anyone's attention. At this moment, a burst of light footsteps suddenly came from outside the hall. Squeak! With a soft sound, the door of the main hall opened, and a graceful figure took the lead and slowly stepped into the main hall. The visitor was wearing a white dress, with a graceful figure and skin as good as snow. She looked like a fairy descending from heaven, elegant and elegant. She was none other than Yu Linglong. She was dressed in white, fresh and refined, and extremely beautiful, just like the arrival of Chang'e from the Guanggan Palace. Next to her was Mu Xian. She was dressed in a green dress, with a peerless appearance that would captivate a country. She was so beautiful that she seemed to be out of this world. Greetings to the third elder. Seeing Yu Linglong, everyone present stood up and saluted respectfully. Yu Linglong moved lightly and came to sit on the high platform. She glanced around and said softly, "Everyone, please sit down." After everyone leveled up, she turned her eyes to Master Yan's and others who were sitting indifferently. "Master Yan, I wonder why you Qingyun Temple came to my Yaoguang Holy Land this time," Yu Linglong asked with a slight smile. Her voice was soft and sweet, which made people feel relaxed and happy. "Is your holy lord really practicing in seclusion, Master Yanzi glanced at him lightly and asked the question without answering. Hearing this, Yu Linglong's eyes changed slightly, and she said softly, "My holy master has indeed been in seclusion for many months. As for when he will leave seclusion, even we have no idea." Then he smiled slightly and said, "Does Master Yan have doubts?" A strange smile appeared on Master Yanzi's face, and he said softly, "I have no doubts at all. I just hope that Elder you will tell the holy master of your sect to be vigilant recently to prevent thieves from breaking in and doing evil." "Oh? May I ask Mr. Yan what you mean by this?" Yu Linglong frowned slightly and said with some doubts. Master Yanzi smiled slightly and said calmly, "It's nothing interesting. It's just that on the way here, I found that the apocalypse territory seems to be a little uneasy, and there are so many fairies in your Yaoguang holy land, so you need to be more careful." After listening to Master Yanzi's words, Yu Linglong's face suddenly darkened, and a cold look flashed in her beautiful eyes. These words obviously contained inexplicable ridicule and a condescending feeling, which made her extremely unhappy. A cold look appeared on Mu Xian's pretty face, her delicate body trembled slightly, and her pink fists couldn't help but clench slightly. It seems that Master Yan has something in his words. "Please clarify." After pondering for a long time, Yu Linglong suddenly said with a slight smile. Master Yan said calmly, "Don't worry, I'm just kindly reminding you." Yu Linglong smiled sweetly and whispered, "Since Master Yan is so kind to remind you, I would like to thank Master Yan on behalf of Yaoguang Holy Land." "Yes." Master Yanzi nodded. "By the way, I wonder when the Holy Master of your sect plans to leave seclusion this time." "As for the specific time, I don't know." Yu Linglong chuckled. Master Yan's looked at her deeply. "Ma'am, please have some tea." Yu Linglong calmly raised the teacup in her hand and said softly. Master Yanzi glanced at the teacup that Yu Linglong handed to him indifferently, but did not reach out to take it. He even didn't bother to reward her with one from the corner of his eye, and still sat on the chair calmly. Seeing this, Yu Linglong's face froze slightly for a moment, and a ball of anger rose in her heart. However, she suppressed the anger in her heart and said softly, "Master, I don't know why you came here this time." Master Yan still sat still and said calmly, "Of course it's for the centenary celebration." Yu Linglong bit her red lips lightly, a tremor flashed across the corner of her eyes, but there was still a slight smile on her face, and she said, "So that's it? Counting the time, it's indeed the centenary celebration. Well, you won't be absent from Yaoguang Holy Land then, right?" Master Yanzi said with a faint smile. "This, I'm not sure yet, because our Holy Lord is still in retreat." Yu Linglong hesitated and said with a slight embarrassment. The smile at the corner of Master Yan's mouth froze for an instant. Obviously he did not expect that someone would decline the centenary celebration. "What does Elder you mean by this? Are you Yaoguang Holy Land not planning to participate?" Zhen Yanzi asked calmly, but his eyes seemed calm, but in fact they were a little sharp, and faintly exuded a hint of coldness. Yu Linglong shook her head apologetically and explained, "To be honest, the Holy Lord has been in seclusion for a long time and has not come out yet. As for whether to participate in the celebration, I can't make a decision, and I dare not make a decision on my own. It doesn't matter. The protagonists of the 100 Days Festival have always been young people under the age of 100. You can take your saints and those outstanding young generations to go, and your saints will continue to be in seclusion." Zhenren Yanzi said coldly. Yu Linglong's face froze. "Yaoguang saint? The saint of their Yaoguang Holy Land may be receiving RU with her master Yaoguang Saint Lord now." Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 399. This. Yu Linglong paused and declined politely. Ma'am, the saint of our Yaoguang Holy Land is also in retreat. Master Yan's face instantly darkened again. He thought that Yu Linglong would readily agree, but who knew that the other party still didn't appreciate it at all and would actually say such a thing bluntly. This clearly shows that they look down upon their view of Qingtian. Haha, Elder Yu, your reason is very lame. Master Yanzi narrowed his eyes slightly, stared at Yu Linglong, and snorted coldly, am I not qualified to invite you Yaoguang Saint? Yu Linglong's pretty face froze, and she said hurriedly, no, no, the real person has misunderstood. We didn't mean it like this. It's just that the time is really unlucky. Our Holy Lord and Holy Lady are all in seclusion and will not be able to come out for a while. Is that so? Let others go. Master Yanzi waved his hand. Real person. Yu Linglong stopped talking, with a bitter look on her face. We other disciples of Yaoguang Holy Land have to perform a very important task in the past few days, and we may not have time for the time being. After hearing this, Master Yanzi's face became more and more gloomy, and there was a faint coldness in his eyes, and he said word by word, what? Is it that your Yaoguang Holy Land doesn't even want to participate in the centenary celebration? The other party's attitude was already obvious, that is, they wanted to reject him. But what Master Yans doesn't understand is why Yaoguang Holy Land rejected his invitation. This is a grand event that only happens once in 100 years. Other sects are not qualified to participate in it. Yaoguang Holy Land is lucky enough to refuse it. Master Yanzi has invited countless sects, and this is the first time he has seen Yaoguang Holy Land like this. It seems there must be something wrong here. The speaker's cold eyes looked at Yu Linglong, and his inner alertness and vigilance were raised to the maximum. But when he thought of the mission entrusted to him by the Holy Sun, Master Yanzi felt a headache. Because the Holy Sun required him to invite all these sects, and no one could be left behind. At first, Master Yans didn't take this task seriously at all. After all, this task was not difficult at all. I would like to ask which sect in the entire human race can refuse the invitation of King Yun Temple? Which sect can refuse the temptation of a century-old ceremony? Master Yanzi did not expect that the first sect he invited would reject him. Simply outrageous. Being stared at by Master Yanzi, Yu Linglong felt as if there was a sharp blade hanging above her head, extremely depressed, and her whole heart seemed to have stopped beating. She knew that what she said would definitely arouse suspicion and even anger from Master Yanzi, but what she said was indeed the truth and that was all she could say. She neither dared to offend King Yun Temple nor did she dare to betray De Qin. She was caught in the middle and could only pick out some middle-of-the-road remarks. But there is an advantage to this. Master Yanzi may think that there is another reason behind Yaoguang Holy Land's unwillingness to participate in this feast. At that time, as long as the other party does a little investigation, they will know the cause of the matter. At that time, it had nothing to do with the Yaoguang Holy Land, and there was no need to worry about retaliation from the Qin dynasty. It might even be possible to provoke a conflict between the King Yun Temple and the Great Qin dynasty, causing a conflict between the two parties, and their Yaoguang Holy Land could take the opportunity to get out of the current predicament. Although it was risky to do so, she knew better that if she didn't do it, she might miss this opportunity. However, there is something Yu Linglong doesn't understand. She just revealed a little bit about her unwillingness to participate. Why did Master Yans feel a little angry? Logically speaking, with the status of King Yun Temple, they should have an indifferent attitude as to whether remote sects like them from the Holy Land of Light would participate or not. But Master Yan seems to care very much. Why is this? Could it be because she had refuted his face in public? That should be it. Yu Linglong thought with some doubts in her heart, but she did not let go of her superficial skills. Master, calm down. Yu Linglong lowered her head and whispered, it's not that we don't want to participate in the centenary celebration, but we really have no time to do it. Really? Master Yanzi stared at Yu Linglong and said in a low voice, so, do you Yaoguang Holy Land really intend to deny me face? Hearing this, Yu Linglong said bitterly, that's not the case. Our Yaoguang Holy Land and King Yun Temple have always been on good terms, so how can we not give you face, the real person? It's really because. Yu Linglong sighed and continued, it's really because there is something hidden behind it. I hope you can forgive me. Master Yanzi's eyes flickered slightly. He wanted to ask what the secret was, but this would make him very unqualified and might expose his mission. He had already lost his composure just now, and he didn't want to lose his composure like this again. Very good, in that case, I won't disturb you anymore. Master Yanzi sneered, stood up, and a powerful momentum surged out of his body, filling the entire palace. At the same time, a terrifying pressure filled the air and enveloped the entire hall, causing the air to suddenly become extremely stagnant. The next moment, Master Yanzi turned around and left with light steps and a cool demeanor. But inside he was extremely angry. As an elder of King Yun Temple, how could he have suffered such humiliation? A remote sect dared to disobey his orders. It was really outrageous. After Master Yanzi took other disciples of King Yun Temple away, many Yaoguang disciples in the hall finally breathed a sigh of relief and sat limply on the ground, looking like they had survived a disaster. It was too terrifying. Master Yanzi just released his aura and it made them breathless. If the other party wanted to kill them, they would be destroyed in a snap of a finger. Yu Linglong also looked tired, with cold sweat on her forehead. She was highly concentrated and under great pressure. Now that she relaxed, she was exhausted. She breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, they escaped a disaster, otherwise they would be in danger today. After a moment, Yu Linglong slowly calmed down, looked at everyone, and said in a deep voice, sisters, you go back and rest first, and leave the rest to me. Yes, the girls nodded, and then walked out of the hall one after another, leaving Yu Linglong alone. After the girls left, Yu Linglong took a deep breath, tried to calm her excitement, and then took out a communication token. The communication token is a communication tool, a magic weapon specially made by Yaoguang Holy Land, which has the function of transmitting messages. However, the range of this communication tool has certain limitations and cannot be transmitted infinitely. The maximum range is the two major domains of Tiankai domain and Tianlan domain. If it is farther away, it will not be able to contact. This communication token records the contact information of all the core disciples and senior elders of Yaoguang Holy Land. Yu Linglong's white hands trembled slightly, and she input a spiritual power. In just a moment, the top message on the communication token began to flicker slightly. The name written on the message was the Holy Lord of Yaoguang Holy Land, Mu Kingzi. But after a long time, no one responded to her. Yu Linglong frowned and murmured, I still can't get in touch with her. Why is this? With the ability of the communication token, it should be enough to contact my senior sister in the Great Qin dynasty, but why can't I get in touch with her at all? Senior sister, where did you go? At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 400. Outside the Yaoguang Holy Land. A huge flying boat was quietly parked at the edge of the forest. Inside the flying boat, Master Yanzi was standing with his hands behind his back, his eyes half closed, and it was unknown what he was thinking. Master, do you really believe what the elders of the Yaoguang Holy Land said? I don't believe that they can't even gather a disciple to participate in the celebration. A man in a black robe couldn't help asking. Master Yanzi slowly opened his eyes and said indifferently, "What do you think?" The middle-aged man hesitated for a while and said, "I think these Yaoguang elders are lying." Master Yanzi narrowed his eyes and glanced at the middle-aged man beside him. "Humph, so what? Are we going to send monks to attack the Yaoguang Holy Land?" Zhen Yanzi's tone was cold. After a moment's silence, he continued, "Besides, the girl named Yu Linglong didn't seem to be lying." After a pause, Yanzi's slightly gloomy eyes glowed with a faint light, and he said grimly, "They dare not disobey my orders. It must be for some reason, and it is definitely not a joke." The middle-aged man nodded and said, Zhen is wise. You should immediately send a few powerful deacons to investigate what happened in the Yaoguang Holy Land and the Apocalypse domain recently. I want to see what secrets the Yaoguang Holy Land has, Yanzi Zhen said in a deep voice. "Yes, sir," the middle-aged man clasped his fists respectfully. Zhen Yanzi waved his hand, and the middle-aged man took the order and retreated. Then he touched the air with his toes and instantly left the flying boat and disappeared. "Zhen, where are we going now?" the old man with a childlike face and white hair frowned and asked with some doubts. Master Yanzi glanced at the old man with a childlike face and white hair indifferently, and said in a cold tone, "The task assigned by the Holy Sun has not been completed yet, so of course we will continue to the next section." The old man with a childlike face and white hair nodded slightly, and then said, "Then let's go to Xiwei Fairy Palace." Master Yanzi nodded. Tens of thousands of miles away. Boom boom. The void shook, and the wind and thunder rolled. A huge flying boat was speeding, breaking through the night like a meteor and disappearing at the end of the sky. The deck of the flying boat was full of figures. "Is this Xiwei Fairy Palace?" Master Yanzi looked at the ruins under his feet with a look of astonishment. He couldn't believe that there was once a fairy gate here. He even suspected that he had taken the wrong road. "This is indeed the station of Xiwei Fairy Palace," the old man with a childlike face and white hair nodded and said solemnly. "Although it has been a long time, the amazing evil spirit emanating from this area can still be vaguely felt. Countless cultivators have died here, and only in this way can they gather into a strong resentment, which will form evil spirits over time and become a taboo of death." "Go and have a look," Master Yanzi said in a deep voice. The old man with a childlike face and white hair nodded and immediately made several seals. In an instant, the flying boat burst into brilliant golden light, suspended in the void, and slowly descended. After it stopped completely, the people inside the flying boat got off the flying boat one after another. At this time, the flying boat was full of corpses, including human corpses, monster corpses, and various rare and exotic herbs. Of course, more of them were human corpses. It looked like a Shura field, which was horrible. Master Yanzi's pupils shrank suddenly, and his eyes looked around. His consciousness spread out and carefully explored the surroundings. What a strong evil spirit! Master Yanzi's eyes changed constantly. This Xiwei Fairy Palace turned out to be a forbidden place of death. Even though he was in it at this time, he still felt a palpitation in his heart, as if he would fall into the underworld forever in the next moment. There was a fierce battle here. Could it be that the enemies of Xiwei Fairy Palace came to visit? The old man with a childlike face and white hair whispered. Upon hearing this, Master Yanzi frowned. He felt a little uneasy, and always felt that things were not that simple. After thinking for a while, Master Yanzi ordered, "Send the deacon to the nearby city to investigate clearly, and we will rush to the next force first." The old man with a childlike face and white hair clasped his fists and said, "I obey your command." After that, the old man with a childlike face and white hair turned and walked down the flying boat, and then called 3 deacons to ask them to quickly go to the nearby city. After the 3 deacons left, the flying boat took off again and continued to rush towards the distance. Time passed quickly, and 2 days passed quietly. During these 2 days, Master Yanzi led everyone to arrive at 5 or 6 forces one after another. However, these 5 or 6 forces were all attacked, their sects were destroyed, and all the disciples were killed. Only rotten remains and the smell of blood were left. Master Yanzi's face became more and more ugly and more livid. His mission this time was ruined. Master, judging from the items left behind by these forces may have been destroyed for a long time. Moreover, based on the debris and bloodstains left by these 5 or 6 forces, they were all attacked by high-level monks, which led to the tragedy of the extinction of the section. A deacon examined the corpse and said to Master Yanzi with a sad face. "Well, I know." Master Yanzi took a deep breath, and his face recovered a little, but it was still full of gloom and anger. "It seems that this matter is much more serious than I expected." The old man with a childlike face and white hair sighed and said, "Master, what should we do next? What if we don't report this matter to the Holy Sun?" Hearing this, Master Yanzi was silent for a moment, shook his head and said, "No need, I will handle this matter myself." Before setting off, he vowed to complete the mission. If he couldn't even do this little thing well, wouldn't it be a joke? The old man with the childlike face and white hair nodded, and then asked, "What does Master plan to do?" "Investigate, find out who did it, kill." Master Yanzi's tone was extremely calm, but it was chilling and chilling. As soon as Master Yanzi finished speaking, swoosh! Suddenly, several sounds of breaking wind came from not far away, followed by 3 handsome young men in blue shirts. "Meet Master." 2 elders. The 3 bowed to Master Yanzi and others. Master Yanz nodded calmly and said softly, "Any news?" One of the shorter and more heroic young men replied, reporting to Master, "It was done by Dakin." Hearing the word Dakin, Master Yanz was startled, and his eyes suddenly showed doubt. "Dakin? What kind of power is Dakin?"